Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Lollie's History Sharing Session. For the next 6 weeks, I'll be covering 6 topics, beginning with Africa, slavery in North America, Reconstruction, the Great Migration, the Civil Rights Movement, and the current political climate in the United States and the protests. For this first session, I'm going to share information about our history beginning in Africa, before our ancestors were brought to the United States. I'm going to talk about the land, the resources, the society, the people, and the lifestyle. Africa is a very large continent with 54 countries, and it has languages and cultures where art, technology, and learning flourished. Africans were especially skilled with mathematics, astronomy, stars, and the solar system, and medicine. They also were very creative, making luxury items out of bronze, gold, ivory, and great weapons out of iron. Let's talk about the gold in Africa because it was a whole lot of gold in Africa. Gold was traded through an international trading system that stretched from the coast of West Africa all the way across the Sahara Desert to North Africa and beyond. It was dominated by powerful empires in Mali, Ghana, and Songhai. These were very rich and powerful empires at the time. Ghana Empire, or ancient Ghana, was so rich that their dogs even wore collars out of gold. Can you imagine that? I mean, they were rich. Their rulers were considered the wealthiest in the entire world. Gold and iron were traded for livestock, usually gold and cattle, and fabrics, with camels transporting the goods across the Sahara Desert. So you would load your gold up and your fabrics and on the backs of camel, and the goat and the cattle would walk, and you would walk across the Sahara Desert, and it was hot. And they walked all the way across the Sahara Desert to the other nations that they had trade relationships with, which were primarily the Middle East, countries in the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe, allowing Ghana to be the epicenter of trade in the region, which means if they were the epicenter, it was the central hub. It was the hot spot. It was the main place you went to. It was like the biggest mall in town. The West African Empire of Mali, which was larger than Western Europe at the time, eventually became one of the richest nations in the world, even surpassing ancient Ghana under Emperor Mansa Musa, and Mali had vast wealth in the 14th century. Talk about the 4 ancient African kingdoms. The first one I'm going to talk about was the kingdom called Kush. It was on the east coast of Africa along the Nile River. The people in this area were famous for their skills in making bows and arrows and archery skills, which gave them the upper hand when they went into battle and when they had fights. If you can imagine, if you had been practicing shooting a bow and arrow all the time at a target, and when you went to war, you hit your target. They were primarily farmers of cotton, wheat, and barley. The females are very important, and there were many queens in Kush. Girl power. There were also significant traders and merchants with India and Persia. And remember, your traders and your merchants were the people who sold items, trading items. So in today's time, we would say, oh, they're the store owners. The second ancient African kingdom was the Kingdom of Ghana, and it was located on the west coast of Africa, and it was primarily made up of a giant savanna and grassland, which was an ideal type of environment if you were a herdsman and raising cattle and goats, because they could roam the land, have grass to eat, and they could be very healthy when you take them to market. People in this era were mostly farmers, but well known for iron, which they made into weapons, and these people were great warriors. And they also had a lot of gold on the west coast of Africa. We will always come back to the gold. The third ancient African kingdom was Zimbabwe, and that's on the southeast coast of Africa. The people in this area were traders, herdsmen, again, goats and cattle, and they also were impressive architects. They built buildings, they designed buildings. Well, they didn't really build them, but they designed the buildings. You can still see the towers and large stone walls today in that region. Great Zimbabwe, which was the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, is recognized as a World Heritage Site with legal protection administered by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And that area is protected. You can imagine if they built those buildings and some of those walls in the 14th century, and today we're in the 21st century, that's 7 centuries ago, 700 years ago, and those buildings are still standing. You can imagine how great those architects were at that time. What great ancient African kingdom was Egypt? And it's on the northeast coast of Africa along the Nile River. People in this area were advanced in science, math, writing, medicine, advanced culture, beautiful clothing, which I love also, and art. And that is ancient Africa. However, not all societies in Africa were wealthy. Many were small scale and relied on fishing, pastoralism, which is herding, which is usually goats and wild cattle. And eventually they settled in certain areas and they relied on agricultural products such as bananas, yams, which are like sweet potatoes, millet, which is a grain that they use. I guess you can make bread out of it and pound it and make side dishes out of it for dinner. They also have root crops, which are vegetables that grow in the ground, and red skin African rice. That sounds pretty. To exchange in the marketplace. They also were highly skilled metal workers and blacksmiths, which they used a lot of times to make weapons and tools for the household. But you can see a lot of that work still when they were brought over to the United States. If you go to the French Quarter in New Orleans, you can still see the blacksmith work that they did on the balconies in the French Quarter. They were highly skilled. The elders and the chiefs, not the kings in these smaller societies, were responsible for forging relationships among families and making decisions. In the bigger societies, you had the king or the queen, and they were like, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to do it, and all the little people just have to do it. But in the smaller societies, you had the most important person in the family or the oldest person in the neighborhood or the society. And that was the person who they looked up to help them make decisions, to help them determine who they would marry, to help them determine how they would build their houses, and also when a person got in trouble, to help them determine how this person would be punished. This person was very important. It was usually an elder member of the family or a chief. Most of those were usually men. I'm not sure why that is, but we'll have to look a little bit deeper into that. But one of the most important things about those societies were that they practiced a type of decision-making process called participatory democracy, which means they listened to input from so many different people before they made a decision. It wasn't just like, I'm the queen, I'm making this decision, or I'm the king, and look, my way or the highway. They took the people's concerns, they listened to the people's concerns, and then they made a decision involving many people in the decision-making process. African people were educators, scholars, and teachers in the Empire of Songhai, which stretched from Mali to Sudan, and were famous for the University of Soukhour, based in Timbuktu and established in the 14th century. Here they studied law, various branches of philosophy, dialect, grammar, rhetoric, and astronomy. They did love the solar system. Ahmed Baba, Baba, 1564 to 1627, is said to have written 40 major books on astronomy, history, and theology, and had a private library with over 1,500 volumes. Knowledge regarding medicine, chemistry, astronomy, physics, math, geography, and philosophy was brought from North Africa to Europe, primarily Spain, by the Moors of North Africa. When the Moors, who were people who lived in North Africa, when they left North Africa, they took that knowledge with them and they went to Spain. Spain at that time was still in the Dark Ages, and they helped to lift them out of the Dark Ages by bringing them so much knowledge. They reigned over Spain and parts of Spain for 800 years. Great civilizations in the world were in Africa until the 15th century, such as Kush, Axum, Mali, and Great Zimbabwe, and these civilizations flourished greatly. Africans participated in very large and extensive international trading networks with India, China, and other parts of Asia. It was the wealth, mainly the gold, that eventually encouraged the voyages of early European explorers to Africa. But it was the gold, in capital letters, from these great empires of West Africa that eventually caught the attention of the Portuguese explorers from Europe. Next week, we will discuss the slave trade in Africa and the transatlantic slave trade. Thank you so much for listening to all this information. I know it was a lot of talking and everything, but don't leave yet. Next, we're going to free our minds. I'm going to take you through a yoga stretch section and we're going to just let it go. Until next week, hang tight. Hello, I'm back. It's time for us to cool down, do some stretches after all that studying. So we're going to sit down on the floor, stretch one leg out, just like this, and we're going to lean over and just stretch. Okay, we have to do the other leg. Cross, straighten that other leg, bend that other leg back, raise those hands up. Inhale and stretch. And it doesn't matter if you can't touch your toe. Just if you get to your leg, do your leg. If you can just get here, get here. But I have a feeling all you youngsters can reach your toes. So go for it. Come up, inhale, straighten both legs out. Now we're going to go for both feet at the same time. Now, I can't even do this, but I'm going to do what I can, so I expect you all to do what you can. So now, I didn't tell you the rest of the story. I have a question for you all. I want you to answer the question Think about why or why not you came up with that answer. There is no right or wrong answer. And discuss the answer with your grown up. Whoever the grown up is in your life, discuss the question and answer with them. This is the question I came up, and it's based on everything we study. If you could go back in time to Africa, what profession would you choose? Would you be an architect and design buildings? Would you be a doctor? Would you be a queen? Would you be a farmer? Especially if you love little baby goats. Would you be a merchant and own a store? Like a trader? Would you be a scientist and develop a cure for anything and everything you could think of? Would you be an artist and create beauty in this world? Would you be a teacher to give people and children all this knowledge? Would you be a king? Would you be a herdsman with all the wild cattle, like a rancher? Just think about what you would be and why you'd be that, and discuss it with your grown-up. Thank you so much for your time and attention. It was so great talking to you all. And like my big brother always tells me, forever and always, keep your heads up. All right, see y'all next week. Have a great week. Bye.